Two's company, two's company, two's company, two's company, two's company, two's company, but not three. That's too much company.
Nailed it.
Welcome to episode 8 of Two's Company, a fortnightly podcast hosted by me, Sophie Hellyer.
And me, Grace Kingswell. In today's episode, we are discussing cancel culture, Naomi Osaka's withdrawal from Roland Garros, and we have a quick chat with our friend Cat Sarsfield. We will also be rounding up the news in our very here's what we think is important this week way. You're very welcome in advance.
And there will, of course, be some facts about vaginas, questions from you in the mailbag, and some things that we disagree on.
I'd also just like to tell you that this episode is sponsored by Exhale Coffee. Coffee that is free from mycotoxins, heavy metals and pesticides. But I'm going to tell you more about that later and give you a discount code to try some for yourself.
So, shall we get on with the episode?
Band meeting, Sophie?
Present. Grace?
Present.
Nailed it. How's your week?
Mine was really chilled. I kind of took the whole week off life this week. I did have some clients, kind of like one a day, kept things really chilled and just lapped up the sunshine, read a book. I just got overtired and I'd been doing way too much and my body said no. So I just listened to that and took things really slow, which is lovely.
Sounds delightful.
Yeah, I got quite a suntan going.
Yeah, yes, you have. I had quite a lot of work on, but it was actually really nice to be like back working and having like deadlines and demands and time pressure and like being back into it a little bit after like being self-employed through the pandemic. I haven't had as much work to do as usual. So I've actually quite enjoyed being productive with my time.
That's good.
Yeah.
And how's the puppy?
She was so naughty in puppy training. Oh my
no.
God.
That's funny because when we saw you a few days ago, both you and Johnny were like, yeah, you wouldn't guess it, but she's the best puppy at puppy training, which I'm sure every dog owner says that about their puppy.
She's often the best dog at puppy training. Last night, not so much.
What did she do?
We won't go into it.
No, I want to know.
She just does it. We had to throw the toy and they were meant to get the toy and come back to us, but she obviously just got the toy and ran around the whole room for 10 minutes and ignored me.
Is it embarrassing, like when they do that, or just all the dogs do that?
It was very embarrassing because I went first, but then like most of the other dogs also did it, so it's fine.
Okay.
On with the news.
So, this week in the news, and actually I was really pleased to see someone ask us to discuss this via our mailbag. Naomi Osaka, who is a tennis player, for those that don't know, and I think is ranked, well, I just did a quick Google, number 2 in the world, although I'm not sure if that's going to change since she has pulled out of Roland Garros. Roland Garros is one of the major Grand Slams and is currently happening in France. And Naomi put up, I think it was an Instagram story, or it may have been a post which has now been deleted, last week, just saying quite briefly that she had decided to pull out of all press conferences after her tennis matches in Roland Garros due to mental health. And that's kind of as far as she took it. Obviously, there was uproar and everyone was very, very confused. There were some people saying that she was kind of trivializing mental health by using it as a very casual way to say, I'm not going to do this because of my mental health. And people were very, very cross. And she had to withdraw from the competition. And she has since posted a much longer statement on Instagram, which really explains and gives a lot more backstory as to why she said what she did, which I will go into. Initially, I understood. Initially, I thought, oh, this is great. She's speaking up for her mental health. Athletes don't do this enough. And then I was talking to a friend of mine about it, who's also a tennis player. And he was saying that actually choosing to subject yourself to the rigors of a professional sport is a mental challenge in itself. And that pulling out of press conferences seems like the tip of the iceberg. And actually, I kind of agree with that in a sense. And, you know, press conferences, when they're in a solo sport, are the only opportunity that the fans get to really understand or get an insight into how the players are feeling and what they think about things. And the fans are such an important part of any sport, I think. We'd all agree with that. I think where things go really wrong is that the female tennis athletes get a lot of questions about their dresses and their outfits and like really, really inappropriate questions. And a couple of things from Naomi Osaka's statement. She said, I really want to work with the tour, i.e. the tennis tour, ATP tour, to discuss ways we can make things better for the players, press and the fans, clearly hinting at the fact that she really feels that the whole culture around press conferences is wrong. And she says that I accept my timing was not ideal and my message could have been clearer. I would never trivialise mental health or use the term lightly, but she explains that she's basically really suffered with her mental health. So yeah, I'm in two minds. I think it's fantastic that she has stood up for how she's feeling and really used her platform to highlight the fact that the culture around press conferences, especially for the female athletes, is often wrong. But as a tennis fan, I'm also quite sad to see her not playing in Roland Garros and not talking about how she felt the match went. And I really like that.
I thought it was really sad that she said her depression basically started in 2018 when she beat Serena Williams and the crowd booed as she was getting her trophy. Like that was the beginning of her having these depressive patches. I thought it was so sad. And I also was kind of on the fence. Like to start with, I thought, well, she gets all of her sponsorship and her money and her income from being in the press and advertising, and it's like part of the system. But then, I was chatting to a friend who's a sports journalist, and they were saying they call these press conferences pressers, and the boss always just asks, what's the top line, and they're basically just looking for some like clickbaity thing, and they're basically pointless. Like these press conferences that they are forced, they're obligated to do it.
It's part of their contract,
and they're just pointless. So I think it's great that she's speaking up about her mental health. I don't think that we should trivialize it. There's people like Piers Morgan writing articles saying that it's ridiculous. Which I don't think anyone can judge what someone else's mental health is like. We don't know. But yeah, I think hopefully it will result in positive change, right?
Yeah, because I think no one wants to see press conferences disappear for any sport. But what we need to be doing is actually taking a closer look at the way that they're managed and organisers and the types of questions. And also, a lot of the people questioning tennis players aren't tennis journalists or sport journalists. They're just kind of sent in. And, that's why they're asking stupid questions about what the players are wearing and things like that. And it needs, I guess what it's shown is that it all needs to change.
Something that caught my eye in the news. This past weekend, a high school student in Texas delivered a farewell speech that was really worth listening to. Her original speech had been signed off by school administrators, but she went off script last minute and instead delivered an impassioned critique of Texas's recent extreme abortion ban, which is named the Heartbeat Bill. It's a ban on abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy, regardless of whether the pregnancy was the result of rape or incest. And I think we're going to listen to a little soundbite of that speech now.
I have dreams and hopes and ambitions. Every girl graduating today does. And we have spent our entire lives working towards our future. And without our input and without our consent, our control over that future has been stripped away from us. I am terrified that if my contraceptives fail, I am terrified that if I am raped, then my hopes and aspirations and dreams and efforts for my future will no longer matter. I hope that you can feel how gut-wrenching that is. I hope you can feel how dehumanizing it is to have the autonomy over your own body taken away from you.
I think it took huge guts for Paxton Smith to do this. And for me, it's just like exactly why we have to stay politically engaged. I campaigned a lot around repeal the Eighth Amendment back in Ireland in 2018, which was basically a referendum to allow women access to safe, free, legal abortions. And it won in a landslide, which was a testament to the power of grassroots campaigns and marked a huge cultural shift in Ireland. But I just feel like seeing this news in America would just like women's rights are going backwards in some parts of the world. I think it's really disturbing. Like it shakes me up to think that I feel like we're going to end up in The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
But huge respect to Paxton Smith.
I assume Texas still allows access to birth control in the form of the contraceptive pill and the implant and etc. So it seems crazy that they've not allowed women access to a termination if they were the victim of rape.
Yeah, I think as Paxton Smith said in that speech, it's really dehumanizing.
And, we've come so far as women with rights, and like it is still a struggle, even though we are in the 21st century. It just seems like you're saying a huge backward step.
I feel like you might have some more upbeat pop culture news to follow.
Yes. In true GK pop culture way, this week I'm coming at you with the news that a Hermes Birkin... Hermes. I was about to say Hermes. It's obviously Hermes, but I get very confused because most of what I see on a daily basis is the Hermes delivery man. Who we've got to know very well. So this is my fun pop culture fact, that an Hermes Birkin bag has been sold for £450,000, making it the world's most expensive handbag. You should also know that it has 18-carat white gold hardware and almost 11 carats of diamonds. And you should also know that it is utterly hideous.
I actually thought there'd be more expensive bags than that. Was that a new bag? It's not because it's been like owned by some celebrity or it's vintage.
No, I think this is a vintage one. Okay. But it's all in the Sunday Times style if you're interested in
handbags. I find
handbags.
the most expensive bags are the most ugly bags.
I know, like python leather. But side note, I have not used one single handbag since moving to Cornwall. How about you?
No, I use a little... I'll pronounce it wrong. The Swedish brand. I use just a little backpack tote thing. Fjallraven. Don't know how to say it.
I thought you were going to say you just have a fanny pack, which you do.
Oh, I do have a bum
dog
bag
biscuits
too.
In.
Our Swedish friend Anna will be kicking me for pronouncing Fjallraven wrong.
Anna, how do we pronounce it?
And then, Grace, have you heard about the Australian mice plague?
No, Sophie, explain it to me.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Explain it to me, unprofessionally.
I'll keep it short and concise.
Yeah, that'd be nice. So I first heard about this when I saw my partner watching a disgusting video of a cod that someone had caught. And it was regurgitating 6 decomposing mice.
Sorry, a fish.
A cod. Yes.
Codfish.
A codfish.
Was regurgitating.
Yes, and cod have been found with up to 10 mice inside them. Basically, there is a mice plague of biblical proportions in rural Australia right now.
Ew!
So basically, there was a drought followed by a bumper crop that meant there was food everywhere. And then they also used to do this thing called the burning of the fallows, which sounds quite cool, but it's basically like burning leftover waste, which means the mice have no food. But for environmental reasons, they don't burn the fallows anymore, which means the mice have lots of food and are nice and fat and healthy and are breeding very quickly. And there's now tens of millions of mice running around New South Wales and Queensland.
Can we just go back to how did the fish eat the mice?
Getting there. There's mice everywhere, like swarms of them. One lady went on holiday for 4 days, and on return she opened her door to thousands of mice in her house. They'd nested in the sofa. Her kitchen shelves had to be replaced because they were drenched in mice urine. And she said, like, the final straw for her was they'd like cleaned up the whole house, and then she was washing all of her clothes that had got soaked in mice urine. And as she turned on the washing machine and just saw a little like dead mouse going round and round with them. And I have lived in few too many houses with mice infestations. Have you ever lived in a house with mice infestations?
No, but I have lived on a boat where when you're mooring up in the evening, you have lines to shore, and the mice run across the lines, and you have to put like half sword in half plastic bottles to try and stop them getting on board.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, it stinks. But in my little cottage in Ireland, we had loads of mice, and I remember one like running across my face in the nighttime. And I didn't want to kill them because I'm a vegetarian and I don't like killing things. But like the mental health aspect of it, of like, I didn't get any sleep because there was mice everywhere and the house stank, and I felt like it was driving me crazy. And then I tried the humane traps. They don't work. So I had to just get gnarly and start killing these mice. And it was a real battle with myself. It was horrible. But anyway.
Back to the fish, please.
I think there's just so many mice everywhere that they're like in the waterways, and the fish are managing to eat them.
So a cod is a pretty big fish.
And all the cods are like super fat and healthy looking, but when you catch a fish, the hook goes in its mouth. The fish's reaction is to try and regurgitate the hook out of its mouth.
Yeah.
But they're getting caught and they're just like regurgitating 10 mice.
Imagine if... Oh, no, that's too rank. Actually, I'll say it anyway. Imagine if you having cod in a restaurant and you don't know that the cod's actually just been eating mice, and then you're eating cod that's been eating mice.
Well, unfortunately, I imagine lots of cod in restaurant isn't line caught, so we probably don't have to worry about that.
But I just have a technical issue with this. Obviously, cod is quite a big fish, But its mouth is still not that big. And
Oh,
mice...
it's definitely big enough. I put a link to the video in the show notes. You can see the cod regurgitating said mice and see how big its mouth is if you like.
I don't think I need to watch that.
Anyway, in Australia, the government planned to tackle the mice plague with a poison called bromadiolone, which is currently banned due to secondary poisoning. It takes 100 to 200 days to break down in the gut, meaning that any animal that would eat a mouse, like a dog or an owl or whatever you name it, is then going to eat the dead mouse and get poisoned too. So it's actually going to have a really scary environmental impact of killing the mice also.
And just probably massive like toxic effects in terms of like off-gassing and air quality. Like that seems... I mean, I actually don't know how you would kill a plague of mice without chemicals, but you can't just set billions of traps.
Well, I know there are some other chemicals that like go away in the gut within 1 to 2 days, but I guess they're just not as strong. Anyway, glad I'm not living in Australia right now.
Well, if this podcast didn't already have anything, now you have fish eating mice. So thank you, Sophie.
And because this podcast wouldn't be this podcast without some royal news.
How has this happened? How do we just keep talking about, I don't care about the royal family?
I'll keep it brief. To absolutely no one's surprise, the palace has been discovered to have a history of racist hiring policies. Things continue to not look great for the royal family.
Has this come up in the news this week then?
Yes. But we won't cancel the royal family right yet. I think it was their hiring policies in the 60s, and hopefully they've changed.
Good segue there into our next topic, which is cancel culture. So if you are not aware, the term cancel culture has entered the vernacular of late to describe the phenomena largely bolstered by social media, which describes the judgment of someone that is deemed to have committed some terrible sin, usually the consequence of perceived racism, LGBTQI sexism or hatred, or more often sexual offence. That is a very brief intro. We both have some thoughts, but Soph, I know you've got something you want to read about this.
Yeah, not something I want to read so much. Just, I think you kind of nailed it there. But I think cancel culture is often seen as this online thing with people being held accountable over, racism or whatever it is. But actually, this online mobilization can have real world, lifelong ramifications for some people. Just in the last couple of weeks, journalist Emily Wilder was fired for old social media posts that resurfaced showing she had pro-Palestine views. I just think it's scary how a young reporter's career can be snuffed out by a Twitter mob. And I also think, I know we talked about it last week, but the Israel-Palestine thing is also so divisive. I think that we have to be able to express support for Palestine without being accused of anti-Semitism and being cancelled, so to speak. But that's slightly off topic. Yeah,
and we did kind of touch on this last week, didn't we? We were sort of saying, I think it was in relation to Prince William, not his biceps, but the the Princess Diana piece that we discussed, and we were saying that although the Duke of Cambridge is obviously very moved to stand up for his mother, he can't just go around saying that he wants things taken off TV and documentaries deleted, and because it was taking away her Autonomy, exactly. And I think, although that's slightly different, I'll just give some examples of famous people you may have known who have been cancelled or have been cancelled and then successily come back.
I was going to say may have known because they've just been erased from our minds.
Yeah, so, exactly. So
examples.
Famous examples, Michael Jackson.
Oh, yeah, so he's cancelled as in people disregard or like...
Yes.
He did bad stuff.
And they took his music off the radio for a short period of time. And also the stage show was taken, I was going to say off air, but the stage show was ceased to be staged.
Did all his cancelling happen after he died?
Yeah, really recently, because there was a documentary that came out where they had found kind of 2 new witnesses to his sexual harassment.
Yeah.
But in typical cancel culture way, his stage show, what is the name of the stage show? It will come back to me. But it is now coming back on. So he was cancelled. We had a little brief period of, let's forget about Michael Jackson. He was a terrible person. And now, with time passing, and actually I wanted to read a quote from this piece from
Please do.
Louis Wise, which is in the show notes. It is though once enough time has passed, people can separate the art form from the artist's behaviour more comfortably. So, yeah.
I was literally about to say it's this whole conversation around, can we separate the art from the person and still enjoy like the art and the music they create, even though they're a bad person? I don't know the answer to that. But I think these
Does it depend on how good the artist may be?
Maybe. I think these failed cancellations have a really clear message, and it's basically that incredibly rich, incredibly powerful, often white men can't really be cancelled. And, you know, two other examples I noted down were Kevin Spacey and Louis C.K., whose careers, you know, it was all in the media set to be ruined, accusations from sexual misconduct. And then, you know, what is it, like 3 or 4 years later, they're both back working in their respective industries.
Yeah, and also Johnny Depp is another hugely high-profile one who was dropped by Disney from the 2 upcoming Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and also he had to leave the Fantastic Beasts franchise. But there is also an online petition asking for his return that's reached 600,000 signatures. So... What are your personal thoughts on cancel culture then? Do you think it's needed? I think my personal thoughts are that it is largely, like, you cannot separate cancel culture from the culture of social media, you know, Twitter, Instagram. It's also, I think, very generational. I think that the older generations are much not happier too, but they much more easily do disassociate the art from the artist.
Well, so much of the music that we listened to growing up was so problematic anyway. Like, just listen to the lyrics, let alone like what the songwriter or a pop star has done.
But I think it's the younger generations who are much more activist and vocal and woke, to use a word that I'm not sure how I feel about. And they are the ones that really do try and cancel people and potentially stick to it. And then you've got, you know, fans of Ryan Adams who probably will still listen to his music. And it's like we were saying in the last episode, how far do you want to take it? Do you want to secretly still watch episodes of Buffy? Do you actually still want to watch Gossip Girl? You know, like, I personally, even though I disagree with things that the people in those series have done, I would still watch Gossip Girl.
I don't want to offend anyone, but I would still listen to Michael Jackson.
Yeah, and you still love Buffy, right? So
Buffy.
I think it's a really interesting idea, and I think that it's incredibly nuanced. I think it's always a race to see what's going to last longer, the sins of the artist or the artist's work.
Yeah, I kind of sit on the fence. I think that especially regarding allegations of sexual assault and racism, I think that we have to be aware that by publicly denouncing cancel culture, so saying like cancel culture has no place here, in a way that's a way of shutting down the voices that are seeking to hold the powerful, dangerous people to account. I think it has a place. But, you know, also from my personal experience, I just kind of live in fear of being cancelled. My job is so online. My income relies on it. And, you know, there's lots of things I'd love to discuss slightly more in depth on this podcast, but I really fear of saying something wrong and being podcasted. It feels quite vulnerable to know that you could say one sentence slightly out of place or it could get misconstrued, and then like a Twitter mob, bosh, you could just career cancelled, no income.
And I remember that when we recorded our first episode, that was something you were really nervous of. And we went back and we did quite a lot of editing. And I wonder whether it's because I don't have 45,000 Instagram followers that I don't worry about it as much. And maybe that's what's so wrong with the whole system, is that, you know, it's only ever going to affect people who are famous. Having said that, I did get recognised on the beach the other day. Just like to put that out there.
Last week, I got my vaccine. And I checked my Insta stats the next week, and 150 people had instantly unfollowed me on Instagram. I just thought that's kind of scary. Like, I wasn't making them have the vaccine. I wasn't saying that anti-vaxxers are stupid. I've had a lung operation. My partner and all of my family are vulnerable, so I wanted to have it. And then 150 people have effectively cancelled me for that.
I just think that such an important part of what we talk about on this podcast as well, with our, you know, things we disagree on, is that we inherently don't cancel each other for each other's beliefs. And I think, you know,
might cancel you if you had sexual misconduct or racism going down there.
Well, I was about to say, obviously, cancel culture depends on the scale of the misdemeanor, doesn't it?
Yes, I guess so.
But yes, anyway, lots of thoughts. What are your thoughts, listeners? Do let us know.
Vagina, vulva,
labia,
clitoris, notorious, VAG, vagina facts.
So, vagina facts this week. Thank you to Sophie for actually supplying my vagina fact for me. But I have gone off and done some more research. So, for those of you that don't know, I speak Greek and I am part Greek, and I studied modern Greek at university and lived in Athens for a time. So I was thrilled when Sophie said that, didn't you know that the word clitoris comes from Greek and means small mountain and also...
To rub.
So I haven't been able to find the...
I think it's small hill and to rub.
So the to rub thing, I'm not sure. I clicked on that link you sent me. I think it's bogus. But the Oxford English Dictionary does state that the word clitoris likely has its origins in ancient Greek klitoris, which is perhaps derived from the verb klino, which is to shut. Not sure why it would be derived from a verb that means to shut, but anyway... in Greek, klidi is also the word for key, which I think is great because I think the ancient Greeks were basically indicating that they think the clitoris is the key to the female anatomy.
I like you to rub the small hill and it's the key.
And the key will, yes. And then with the small hill little part, oh God.
The ancient Greeks didn't know that much about the clitoris because it is not a small hill. It's the size of a Coke can, guys.
Yes. But it also in ancient Greek can mean latch or hook, and a verb meaning to touch or titillate lasciviously. To tickle is one German synonym for the clitoris, and the tickler is also associated with the word. And then the hill part, although this verb is more likely derived from clitoris, a word meaning side of a hill, from the same root as climax, interestingly.
You really did do your research there.
Yeah. This is like the one time my degree is actually useful.
And from me, last week it was Menstrual Hygiene Day, which is a campaign to tackle period poverty. And I realised we haven't really talked about period poverty, so I just wanted to highlight it. Period poverty is where women and girls across the world struggle to pay for basic period products, and the effects can be damaging to their health, well-being, self-esteem, and can also be a barrier to education. There are some great projects already doing work like this. The Bloody Good Period provides asylum seekers and homeless people with period products. And next time we're in the supermarket, you could drop tampons in your food bank. However, for me, even the name Menstrual Hygiene Day is a bit problematic. I feel like the term hygiene insinuates that there's something fundamentally dirty about periods. And I'm not sure that it's good to add any more stigma and shame to periods. So I feel like we need to rename Menstrual Hygiene Day.
Can we not zhuzh it up a bit and make it sound a bit more exciting?
Something...
Period's a cool
period
day.
Party day. I don't know.
Yeah. Period party in my pants day. Just on that, though, am I right in thinking that the tax, because there was a huge tax on menstrual products, has that been abolished?
It's been abolished, but for some reason not for period pants. So at the moment there's a woman called Ella Dash. I'll put her in the show notes. She's doing a campaign to abolish the period tax on period pants.
And you can now also, there was a huge campaign that Dame, which is a sustainable period company, was part of, all to do with getting period products into schools.
Yeah, so all schools in, I think it's the UK, not just England, now have free access to period products. So if you are, I don't know if we have any teenage listeners, but if you're in school, and also like my mum has it, she's a county councillor, and you can go to the library and get free period products in where she lives in North Devon.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, on to our next little chunky segment for this podcast. This week we had a lovely catch up with our friend Cat Sarsfield. I am welcoming our very good friend Cat Sarsfield to the podcast. We're going to talk about Cat's newsletter, which we have mentioned in previous episodes, and just generally have a chit-chat about food and fashion and millennial culture and have a bit of a fangirl moment, aren't we, Soph?
Yes.
So Sophie and I went for a swim the other day and I said, oh my gosh, you'll never guess what happened to me, the most ridiculous injury. And she was like, no, wait, save it for the podcast. But I did end up telling you. So in Kat's newsletter, she wrote about the time, could insert a quote here, where she cut her finger whilst trying to open an avocado. of all things. And actually, I was telling a tennis friend of mine about this injury the other day, and this lady's in her 60s, and she said, "Oh, it's usually with an avocado." And I said, "Yes, it is." Anyway, I stabbed my hand with the very sharp, pointy bit of a kitchen knife, like right in, whilst trying to get into an oyster. So there you go. Bougie, middle class, foodie millennial injury. However, side note, oysters are fantastically good for you. So now that I've spoken about myself for a long time and my oyster injury, which is healing, thank you so much for asking. Kat, hi, how are you?
Since no one asked.
Since no one asked.
Your oyster injury is fine. I'm good. How are you guys? So nice to be here.
We're pretty good. Are you enjoying swimming in the Cornish seas?
I'm very much enjoying it. I was actually quite hungover this morning and I did go for a swim that fixed that right up.
Great. I don't know that feeling.
Okay, so quick fire with Cat Sarsfield. Pasta, rice or potatoes?
Rice.
That was a very quick answer.
Hi Kat, this is Kat from the future. I just wanted to say that your first answer was quite short, and the reason that you really love rice is because you grew up eating it, and your mum is amazing at cooking rice, and you'll never be able to not love it because it reminds you of your mum.
Aww. Friends or Sex and the City?
Sex and the City.
I've never seen all of Sex and the City. Should I watch it all?
Yes.
Seemed like the odd one.
I think it's worth doing, even if you don't.
Also, Kat, can we have more enthusiasm from you, please?
Oh, sorry. I was like, do I just need to do the quick fire, or do you want me to talk around it? Okay, I can talk around it. Okay, that's fine. We can start again if you want.
This one's quite dull. Definitely Sophie Hellyer wrote this. Tea or coffee?
Coffee. I don't really drink tea anymore.
Sophie would also like to know, how do you take your coffee?
Black.
I knew it.
No milk.
It's far too cool to drink coffee with
no
milk.
Fab. Well, I don't want to get into the oat milk debate.
This episode is sponsored by Exhale Coffee. Launched in lockdown 2020, Exhale is the UK's first specialty coffee to be sourced and roasted specifically to maximise its health benefits. We know that coffee has really great associated health benefits, and this has to do with its polyphenol content. That's plant chemicals to you and I. Polyphenols are found in fruits and veggies, blueberries, green tea, etc., and are important for maintaining good gut health and nutrient levels within the body. So why are all coffees not created equal? Firstly, coffee is a really hard crop to grow, and for that reason, most companies choose to spray their crops with pesticides to get a higher yield. Those pesticides then end up in your flat white, which is not particularly helpful. Exhale Coffee is organic, and their decaf uses the water pressure method to gently extract the caffeine from the beans, so no nasty chemicals there either. Their journey to finding the best beans involved 9 rounds of lab testing at independent labs across Europe, and they then found a coffee that tested 40% higher in polyphenols, specifically chlorogenic acid, than any other in an online list of 45. It is one of the richest sources of niacin in our diet and is free from any nasties including mycotoxins, pesticides, toxins and heavy metals. One of the coolest things, I think, is that Exhale tested their coffee's antioxidant power, and when comparing it to some of the healthiest foods available in the supermarket, 1 cup of Exhale coffee had the equivalent antioxidant power of 12 punnets of blueberries, 55 oranges, or 1.8 kilograms of kale. Aside from all of this, it's the tastiest coffee I've ever brewed. If you would like to set up a coffee delivery subscription, just head over to their website and use the code TWOSCOMPANY, all in capitals, which will give you 40% off the first bag in your subscription, plus free delivery. They roast and grind every Monday and post your order on a Tuesday, so it's always super fresh. So, use the code TWOSCOMPANY, all in capitals, for 40% off. Just head to exhalecoffee.com. Thank you very much to Exhale.
Kat, you are one of the only Londoners I've seen really enjoying London in the last year during the pandemic. Where is your favourite place to swim in London?
Obviously, Hampstead Heath, Lady Ponds, the Lady Ponds.
The Lady Pond.
I'm going to start calling it the Lady Ponds.
Do you get your lady bits out of the Lady Ponds?
Yes, I do actually.
Yeah, I love that you can be nudie at the Lady Ponds.
I know there's a lot of good toplessness going on there.
Tan those lady bits.
Yeah, got to tan those lady bits. It's very
Tan
right
the
down
nips.
there.
Okay, Wide collars or wide leg jeans?
I have to say wide collars because I feel like the Ganny collar is a signature look of mine because it's one of the only nice tops that I own.
I don't know if there's an answer. I don't think a girl can choose the answer to this one. Birkenstocks or Blundstones?
It depends on the season.
No.
She looks confused. Can I say there's only one season in Cornwall?
Blundstones.
Yeah. Okay,
Apart
I think
from I
I
wear
would
Doc
agree with that,
Martens.
wouldn't you, Soph? Because you can definitely wear Blundstones all throughout the summer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
socks and Birkenstocks is kind of only okay in June, July and August. Pandora or Dolly?
Pandora, because I've interviewed her and I think she's really wonderful. But I would always have resonated with Dolly because I feel like I lived her life and I'm sad that she wrote the memoir I should have written.
I want to know who your favourite is, Grace.
Pandora.
Also, just to explain this for anyone who hasn't obsessively listened to the high-low, we're talking about Pandora Sykes and Dolly Alderton. My favourite is Dolly, I'm afraid, guys.
I love everything about Pandora Sykes. Her wacky clothes, all of the colours, her office space in her house where she has bookshelves that are colour coordinated. I love her children. I love her yellow sofa.
Pushing Grace off the mic here 'cause she's slightly obsessed. Quick fire. 3 words that describe you that aren't related to food.
Obsessed with dogs.
Oh!
One of your 3 words is with.
Yeah,
I thought
with.
it might be like funny, vivacious, like 3 adjectives, but no.
And I was expecting her to say butter, palm, and zest.
Garlic. No.
Or salt.
Salt. Okay, this is the last one that we have written. There may be some others that we
go on, go for
freestyle. Define yourself in an outfit.
If I'm in Cornwall, I like a linen.
No. Define yourself.
One outfit.
Yes.
Okay.
Like turn your personality into an outfit.
Okay, it might sound quite boring then. But Levi's ribcage jeans, like a cropped white t-shirt and a earthy toned knit.
And on the feet.
Doc Marten Chelsea boots.
Okay. She's a gal after our own heart.
She can join us in our fashion parade.
Actually, I think one of the things that united Sophie and I as friends at the beginning of this massive saga that we now call our friendship is the fact that we were both hugely obsessed with Cat Sarsfield before we'd met her.
I had already met her.
Okay, maybe it
we
was
did-
me.
Wait, but you heard the story of how me and Sophie met, didn't you, Grace?
No. Do tell.
So the first time Sophie and I met was in Sri Lanka, and I was living there and saw on Instagram that Sophie was there, and I sent her a message and I was like, "Hi Sophie, my name's Kat. I hope you know. I don't know if you know who I am, but would love to hang out." And Sophie said, "Great. Do you want to come to the dog sanctuary? I'm going tomorrow. I'll pick you up in a tuk-tuk at 12." And she picked me up, and we went to a dog sanctuary. And do you remember when we walked into the?
There was so many dogs. It was kind of wild.
They just
Epileptic dogs?
like hundreds of them literally just like running towards the gates, and I was like, I don't know whether I feel amazed at like elated or like kind of like anxious or not.
I feel I need to explain Grace's Flight of the Conchords epileptic dogs reference, which is the riff we were inspired for with our mailbag jingle. But there probably were also epileptic dogs there. There were many dogs in wheelchairs.
Yeah,
it was quite an
three-legged
emotional
dogs.
day. We bonded through the love of disabled dogs.
Dogtails, not cocktails. That's what I remember.
Thank you for explaining that, because I think I sounded like a terrible person just interjecting with epileptic dogs.
Those poor dogs.
And Cat Sarsfield and I met because I was running some swim and yoga events at the ladies'
At the lady ponds.
at the lady ponds with Nudge Community, and my yoga teacher had said they couldn't do it, and Sophie said, "Oh, you should get Cat Sarsfield." So I DM'd Cat Sarsfield, and that was it.
And on that note, Kat and I are going to be hosting some yoga and women's circles in London later this year. Keep your eyes peeled.
This is the first I've heard about this. Can I come?
Well, you were meant to be doing a breathwork event with me, but you now live in Cornwall, Grace Kingswell.
So do you.
Yeah, but anyway, I travel.
Wow, third wheel here.
Three's a crowd.
Yeah, I'm in the two.
Okay, Kat, before we go, could you quickly just tell us a little bit more about your newsletter, since no one asked?
Yeah. So I started the newsletter like every other millennial in like the third week of lockdown, because what else is there to do when you live alone and you can't see anyone or hang out with anyone? So I started putting my feelings onto paper and thought I'll send it and see what people say. I love food and I love gathering people, so I thought this was sort of like a really nice way of connecting the two. And I just write about just general like memories that I have with food, which are sometimes heartbreaking and sometimes funny, I hope, and hopefully relatable. And then I pop in a little recipe, not recipe, which I call that because there's not really any measurements and I don't know how to measure anything.
Biggest question, is there any merch coming that we can be looking forward to?
There is potentially a Sad Pasta t-shirt on its way at some point this year, so we just need to get
Do you
that
need
done.
to give context on the sad pasta?
If you subscribe to my newsletter when it was on MailChimp, the first newsletter that you'd get would be the first one that I wrote, and it was a recipe for sad pasta, which is basically pasta that when you feel sad it makes you happy, and it involves a lot of tomatoes and olive oil and lemon zest and salt.
All pasta makes me feel happy. I'm very sorry to anyone who is celiac listening to this episode.
You can get good. No, I'm not going to go there. Okay.
Thank you so much, Kat. And don't forget you can subscribe to Kat's newsletter in the show notes.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Agree to disagree. Things we disagree on. Agree to disagree. Things we disagree on.
This week on Things We Disagree On, again, we were scraping the barrel. Sophie, maybe we've got to the end of the things that we disagree on.
Well, I think just the main thing is sand.
We've definitely talked about that.
We've done sand before.
But just so you all know, listeners, it comes up pretty much every day in our lives.
As does the tea bag, currently in my cup of tea.
Yesterday, Sophie came over to record the segment that you just heard with Cat Sarsfield, and I just can't believe, I just love it. She basically went into my house, took off her shoes, but then picked up her shoes, which were full of sand, dropped them on the floor.
Okay, I'm going to explain this a bit better.
All the sand came out on the floor, and I was just like,
Listener,
what are you doing?
Listener, I was in the utility room. I dropped my shoes onto the floor to put them onto my feet, and a small amount of sand came out the soles of them in the utility room next to a shoe rack.
If it was me, I would just not drop them on the floor if I was in someone else's house.
I mean, no. Okay.
Send us an email if you're a really cool female.
Ooh, you're such a cool female.
Send us a letter to make us feel better.
You make us feel better.
Time for the mailbag.
Time for the mailbag. We have a question, Grace. What have you been cooking recently and your favourite cookbook recommendation?
So, I think I'm not very good with the cookbook recommendations part, because I actually, and Nick will be either laughing or nodding his head at this, but I am terrible at following recipes. I have a quick glance and then I just think, yeah, I can do that. I just go off and kind of do my thing.
I'm just going to step in here. Grace, you should probably be recommending your own cookbook.
Ah, yes. But they're not really cookbooks. So I have three actually ebooks on my website that you can download for very little money. And they are a collection of recipes to support health, but then also just lots of information. I really like...
Did you say information? I thought you said inflammation.
Information.
So they're for not getting inflammation.
No, they're actually for the opposite
Information for no inflammation.
New jingle. That could actually be like a health segment, and we can have that as the jingle. So I really like, this is like a time-loved classic of mine, the Hemsley sisters. Their very first book is great. I also just love both of them. Recently I've been making some of the cakes from our previous podcast, Hugh Fernley Whittingstall's new book. Bit of a mouthful, that one. And we got my friend Tiggy, also previous guest of the podcast. I was having a bit of a not a bitching session with her, but I was just saying, I would love it if my husband cooked a bit more. And she so kindly sent me in the post without asking. I can't remember the name of the book, but I can find it for you. It's like a one-pot pan. So everything goes in a baking...
Jamie Oliver, isn't it?
No.
Oh.
It's a one recipe pan thing. You put everything in a baking tray and it goes in the oven, and the recipes are amazing. So I also like that.
I feel like that links in really well with Cat's Since No One Asked newsletter, because it's like you didn't ask for the cookbook, but Tiggy just unsolicited sent Nick some recipes.
Unsolicited cooking advice from Tiggs.
One of my favourite cookbooks is also Melissa Hemsley's Eat Green. I think it came out last year, and I use that one quite a lot. Some good veggie recipes in there.
Good veggie recipes, yeah. And she's very good at giving ideas to use up old odds and ends and things, isn't she? It's like no food waste.
We're obsessed with the Hemsley sisters. There you go.
Yeah, I know. So some other questions that we had in the mailbag. One of them I like is how to make friends as an adult. This tickled me because I don't have many friends. My main friend is sitting right here.
We just invited Cat on the podcast to prove that we have another friend.
What would you say, Sophie? I think it's about finding people that enjoy doing similar things, because it's always easy to make friends when you're doing something and you've got that thing to talk about, like going for a swim, for example, or playing tennis. I have lots of tennis friends.
I can hear a really loud bird chirping, and I hope you can hear it on the podcast because it's kind of cute. For me, making friends as an adult, I'm into sport, so it's all about sport. I've joined the local football team. I go wild swimming with people. I go surfing, played a bit social tennis, even though I'm rubbish. But yeah, what Grace said, just join the groups the stuff you like, If you like knitting, join a knitting group.
No, wait, I do have one more question for you. How do you deal with comparison?
For me, this was a huge one growing up, because I grew up being a semi-professional surfer and a model, and I was always comparing myself to the other girls. And, you're never going to be the best surfer in the world, never going to be the prettiest girl in the world. So just living in this like constant state of not being good enough and comparison. And it was really, really, really bad for my mental health. So I stopped competing and pretty much stopped modeling, and had therapy. And now I don't compare myself.
Yeah.
So now it's all about collaborating. So if I see someone whose project or whatever I think is like really cool, instead of feeling fear and anxiety about them being better than me, I go, that's really rad. Should we do something together?
Yeah. I think it's something that comes with age as well, isn't it? I think maybe for some people it always stays with them, but certainly for me, I definitely felt a bit of comparison stuff when I was younger at school, for sure. And especially when blogs and Instagram first started, I remember really feeling like, oh, she's really slim or she's really pretty or whatever. But I think it's something that I have never really dealt with on a massive scale. And certainly these days, like, I just do not give a shit.
I also have the luxury of knowing that most of the models don't look like the models in real life.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some obviously really beautiful women, but a lot of them just don't, like people online, they don't look like that in real life. And yeah, I totally agree. It's easier as you get older. Oh,
Yeah.
the glorious 30s. Quite looking forward to my 40s for that. I bet it just gets better.
Self-confidence is quite a hard thing to come by, isn't it? But I think if you can get there, it's just wonderfully liberating because, don't care.
So if you want to slide into our mailbag and ask us a question, it's Two's Company Shiz.
Such as face fuzz, accepted or deal with it? We won't go into that one, but these are some of the great questions that we do get.
That was a question, not our email address. The email address is twoscompany@gmail.com. That's SHIZ, because someone else had stolen Two's Company. And please like us, give us a little review in the Apple Podcast app, share us with your friends, stick us in your Instagram stories, help us get more listeners.
Yeah, and we also really enjoy it when you ask us to talk about certain things. So if something is very pressing and you'd like to hear our thoughts on it, because let's face it, who wouldn't want to hear our thoughts, Sophie?
Otherwise, we'll continue to waffle on about the royal family and tennis.
Speaking of, see ya. Bye.
Two's Company, Two's Company, Two's Company, Two's Company, Two's Company, Two's Company. But not three, that's too much company.
Nailed it.